YouTube fam, never Torpid fam, it's Torpid here. I am beyond excited to show you Arcane. Arcane, when I first got introduced to it, was all over the place, but Pherix gave me the direction. That's right, we teamed up with multi-rank 1, even better Duder Magooter, Pherix, guys. Check him out at twitch.tv/Pherix1. Today we're going to take you through everything you need to know to get a strong core and a really advanced guide to Arcane Mage. Things you need to do for your burst, things you need to do in your downtime, things to bring it all together. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. And remember, as always, if you want to keep it never Torpid, that's our fam in the game and out of the game. You got to want it for yourself. And then once you start taking care of yourself, you can start taking care of others. Thank you guys so much for all the crazy support. More PvP content is on the way. Let's get into it. All right, first things first, in every single guide, I want to go over the stat priority, the enchants, the tier pieces, and the gear. We've got Corrupted Gladiator Pherix sitting right here for you. I had him log out with his Arcane Mage gear. If I scroll down just a little bit, you're going to get a perfect snapshot here of all the gear he has and of all his enchants, okay? So you can pause the video here and take a look at this. What you're going to want to know is that you're going to want the 4 set of tier for everything but your legs, and then the legs are going to be crafted. And if you're unable to get the exact same gear as Pherix, or if you're gearing up a new mage, the stat priority you're going to be trying to achieve with other pieces of gear is haste and, of course, versatility, which is on every single piece of gear, but you're striving towards getting a lot of haste. So there it is right there, everything for you in one spot. Go ahead, soak that up, and get your character ready for the rest of the guide. Okay, guys, so I'm just going to be straight with you. Arcane has a lot going on. It has a ton of utility, and its spells are a little bit wonky, so it's perfect you're watching this guide. For the basic guide, I'm not going to cover every single ability, but I'm going to give you a breakdown of the main abilities and the main objective for Arcane, so that when you watch the rest of the guide, you have a better understanding of everything we're talking about, and you'll see that later on the more of the CC and more of the utility. So let's get right into it. The first thing you're going to notice about Arcane Mage is underneath the enemy, you're going to have 4 charges. Now, you're going to have abilities that build these charges up, and then abilities that hit harder when you're at your 4th charge. So let's walk through those. The first ability you're going to have is called Arcane Blast. And now it's a castable ability up front that generates a charge. Now, the thing about Arcane Blast is it directly correlates to the amount of charges here. So when there's 4 charges, the effects of Arcane Blast are actually going to increase. So right now, there's 4 charges. So Arcane Blast is going to have its damage increase, but also cost a lot of mana. You can only spam so many 4 charges before you start to run out of mana, okay? And we're going to talk about that later on, but you can see it's using a tremendous amount of mana. The second ability is going to be Arcane Explosion, and it's going to shoot an explosion around you. And when it hits a target, it's also going to generate a charge. And then your third ability is your Arcane Orb. When it passes through enemies and deal damage, it generates a charge. Okay, and then let me swap these 2 around. Let's talk about Arcane Barrage next. Arcane Barrage is how you're going to spend your charges. You see all 4 of the charges vanish, and Arcane Barrage consumes them to deal big damn. So the Arcane Orb, I want to show it to you. I'm going to cleave these targets here, and you're going to see that instantly I go to 4 charges because it hit 4 and actually more than 4 targets. And that's how the orb animation works. I'll throw it one more time straight out here. The orb's going to fly forward and do damage and generate 4 charges. And then you're going to consume with your Arcane Barrage. So that's how these abilities are going to interact. And that's how your charge bar is going to interact on a very basic level. The next ability that's going to be used throughout the guide is called Arcane Missiles. These are not based off your charges. They don't generate charges. It's an ability on its own. And we're going to get more in depth on it. But basically, it's going to fire an assault of missiles. That's what you need to know for now. Your next 3 offenses that we're going to talk about are Touch of the Magi or Magi. I have no idea. And that's going to generate 4 charges. And it's going to help you do more damage. Simple Torpid terms. So press that. You get 4. And then you can see that later on, you're going to see how it does extra damage. That's on a 45-second CD. And then you have Presence of Mind, which when you press Presence of Mind, your next 2 Arcane Blasts no longer have the channel. You can see I press both of them there. And then the third one is going to channel. But for 2 of them, it's instant. And then the third offensive ability that I want to talk about is Arcane Surge, which is going to deplete your mana and make your entire go extremely powerful. So you're going to see later on that we're going to Arcane Surge at the top left. Our mana vanishes. We're going to gain a ton of buffs, and we're going to be able to do our rotation and do a ton of damage. The next little things I wanted to talk about are Polymorph is the best CC for Mage. However, there's a couple different CCs, especially with Arcane. We're going to talk about those later, but definitely understand Polymorph, a castable CC onto the enemy players, onto several, one after another. It can only be used on one at a time, but because it's not on a CD, you can keep casting it on different targets, which makes it extremely strong. And then you're going to have your Blink. So you're going to be able to blink with your Blink to gain distance or blink out of a stun in certain situations. Frost Nova is your basic peel for Mage that's going to root the melee or casters in place. And then Cone of Cold is going to shoot a Cone of Cold out, and it's going to apply a slow to the target. So these are three basic utilities that you need to understand. And then your three defensives are 1, Ice Block. When you're in the Ice Block, you take no damage and you regenerate health. You can click it again to get out of it. And then Greater Invisibility. It puts you invisible, but that's not really the use of it. With one of our talents, what it actually does is it grants us a 60% damage reduction. So when the enemy is training you and you don't want to block, you pop Greater Invis for a 60% damage reduction. And then Mirror Images. These images, unfortunately, don't do any damage, but while they're up, you're going to get a 20% damage reduction. So this is the very basics of Mage. And later on, I'm going to take you through a lot more abilities, how they synergize together. But if you understand this, you're going to be a little bit more comfortable and have a little bit more direction jumping into the rest of the guide. So let's get into it, baby. Okay, so before we get started, you're going to want to have the right talent. So if you're following along on another monitor, you can keep up. You're going to go to the description below and copy the import string. Open up your talents at the bottom left, click import. This is exactly what the string's going to look like. You're going to name it Pherix Arcane if you want, and click import, and then you're going to have the exact same talents that I'm about to talk about right now. Okay, guys, so I'm going to take you through really quickly the breakdown of the burst rotation. So from the top, from Arcane Surge down to your second barrage, this is the ideal 1.5 minute go for Arcane Mage. I'm going to show you what it looks like, how it's channeled and played out. But what you're going to do is imitate this. And after I show you, I'm going to talk about how they all synergize and why this order needs to happen. The first thing you need to note is right here is a stop casting macro. So what it's going to do is it's going to instantly stop casting my arcane missiles. And we're going to talk about that after. So we're going to Arcane Surge into a Touch of the Magi, to a Presence of Mind, an Arcane Missile, cancel the missiles, 1 Arcane Blast, 2 Arcane Blast, Arcane Barrage, an Arcane Orb, into another Arcane Barrage. So you can see it on my Trophy GCD add-on. You can hear it in my voice, but most importantly, I have the order right here so that you guys can practice this and watch it back. But now I'm going to take you through why this order is so specific and why you need to mirror this. And then I'm going to take you through what you do when you don't have your Arcane Surge window up. Okay, so you just saw the burst. You saw the order. Now let's talk about it. Arcane Surge is a 1.5 minute CD, and it's going to give you 35% spell power. So that's why it needs to be used first. It's channeled, so it's important you get this off to get the spell power and then go into the rest of the rotation. After that, Touch of the Magi is going to increase our damage, and it's going to instantly give us 4 charges of our arcane charges. After that, we're going to press Arcane Missiles, because what's going to end up happening is when we consume our clear casting, it increases the damage of our next 2 Arcane Blasts. So if we go back just a little bit, when you Arcane Surge, you're going to get a clear casting proc up here. And when you use your clear casting with your Arcane Missiles, then you're going to get the 20% amplifier on your next 2 Arcane Blasts. So what's going to happen is you're going to press Presence of Mind, which is going to make your next 2 Arcane Blasts instant. You're going to missiles and cancel it. And now that I've done that, I get another precision. So my next 2 Arcane Blasts are increased by 20%. So just to cover that without trying to show you, Arcane Surge grants you a stack of clear casting. Arcane Missiles consumes the clear casting, and then it makes your next 2 Arcane Blasts hit 20% stronger. So this is where Arcane Missiles and the stop casting macro comes in. When we're casting Arcane Missiles, if we get kicked, our whole rotation is now locked out. We'll lose our 20% buff on our Arcane Blast over our kick, and it's going to slow our damage rotation while maybe the healer is CC'd or we found a window. So the reason we have a stop casting macro is because we cast the Arcane Missiles for 1 split second and cancel it instantly so that we can't be kicked, and we maintain our next 2 Arcane Blasts, which are instant because of Presence of Mind. And then we'll have 4 charges for a big Arcane Barrage, and then we'll cleave them down with the orb and send another barrage. So that might have been a lot for you, and now I'm going to break it down just another time so you understand this. Arcane Surge for 35% spell power and a clear casting stack. Touch of the Magi for extra damage and 4 stacks of charge. Presence of Mind so that your next 2 Arcane Blasts are instant. Arcane Missiles to consume the clear casting stack that we're going to get from the Surge, but instantly stop Arcane Missiles so we don't get kicked. And then our Presence of Mind buff is still up, so we're going to be able to Arcane Blast twice in a row with 20% extra dam on each of them, and they're both instant. And then we have a big barrage followed by an Arcane Orb into another barrage. So this is the burst window and explained. There's a couple other amplifiers, but what you need to know is with this build, in this order, you're going to be doing the most amount of damage possible. And remember that stop casting your Arcane Missiles is extremely, extremely important into making this happen. So that's your big minute and a half go. That's your big burst window. Now let's talk about what you do in the downtime with your damaging abilities. Okay, guys, so in the downtime, when your 45 seconds CDs have been used and when your Arcane Surge is a minute and a half CD has been used, this is what you're looking to do. Ultimately, all 3 mage specs are looking to survive, but in different situations, sometimes you're going to have openings to do damage, and sometimes doing certain things over other things provide more value. So the highest value that you can actually get, let me swap the order of these, is spamming Spell Steal. So in the downtime, while you're using your CC and utility, which we're going to get to later, spamming Spell Steal is completely viable, and it's the direction you want to go with Mage, because you can spam this, unlike the other Mage classes, almost indefinitely. You can see at the top left, it's barely moving my mana, so you can be purging a ton of classes, and even if you don't purge something, you can be getting a clear casting stack. So Spell Steal in your downtime is extremely strong for Arcane Mage. Arcane Explosion is another strong ability because it's instant, so you can't be locked. And remember, guys, the weakness of Arcane is when you get kicked, 90% of your abilities are Arcane, and that's the weakness. You won't be able to do anything. Arcane Explosion you can use to generate stacks to then Arcane Barrage out of with your 4 stacks, or you can use it to proc Time Warp and other things we have built in the talent tree, or the clear casting. Okay, so if I just go to these mobs for the sake of the video and I'm hitting a couple of them, you should see pretty quickly here that I'm going to get a clear casting stack, and then with that clear casting stack I can do the damage. So 2 things you can do that are extremely safe and Spell Steal being extremely strong are Spell Steal in your downtime and Arcane Explosion in your downtime. Now let's say your downtime, again downtime meaning these abilities are on cooldown. In your downtime, you can be throwing out your Arcane Orb and then Arcane Barraging. Now with the talent we have selected, Arcane Barrage is going to, read here, apply Chrono Shift. So every time you Arcane Barrage someone, no matter the charge, they're going to get slowed by 50%, and then you're going to get sped up by 50%. And when you pair that with another ability we're going to talk about in a second, you really do see how powerful it can be kiting on Arcane Mage when you keep those pesky melee extremely slow. And then, if given a clear casting proc and the proper opportunity to not be locked, you can be orbing, barraging, and then pressing missiles with your clear casting proc because you can move while clear casting in your downtime. The third thing, it's a bit more rare, but if they leave you alone and you want to farm some damage for a couple seconds outside of your window, you can go ahead and Arcane Blast and then Arcane Blast will start ramping up. Again, it's completely comparable to this. 4 stacks of this means you're going to have 4 stacks of the increased mana, increased damage. While you're Arcane Blast PvEing them, to manage your mana, every time you get a clear casting proc, you're going to want to Arcane Missiles. And sometimes you're going to be able to Arcane Missiles twice in a row because one of our other talents has a chance for Arcane Blast to not consume a clear casting. So if they leave you alone for some reason, your other CDs are on cooldown, you can cast some blasts to get some big damage out and then farm some missiles into them. Now, it's very rare that that happens, but I like to cover everything. The next 2 abilities are a bit different from the damaging ones, but again, in your downtime, you'll be using Shifting Power to get your cooldowns back. So if I go ahead and Touch of the Magi and Presence of Mind and then cast 2 Arcane Blasts to get the on cooldown, you're going to be kiting so well, again, with your slows and your speeds and the help of your team that you'll Shifting Power, and you'll see as we channel this, it's going to take time off our 45-second window, as well as all of our abilities. So Shifting Power works really well on Arcane Mage and is used in 90% of the games because you truly can kite on Arcane to get the full duration off. And then you can spam slows on them. If you've ever faced an Arcane Mage, you're getting slowed by 55%, and this slow will stack with the Chrono Shift from your Arcane Barrage. So that's what I was mentioning earlier. In the downtime of you stealing and purging, building your clear casting with either of these, getting out some damage abilities, Arcane Missiles when it's safe. If they leave you alone, you can Arcane Blast and Missile, and then you can just be barraging at any amount to get that Chrono Shift onto them and then apply a slow and be kiting. And again, guys, the primary thing for Mage is to be doing their strong window every minute and a half, which can be reduced by the Shifting Power. Your 45 seconds goes together, like you saw in the burst window, and then applying all of this in between the downtime paired with some of your CC abilities we're going to get into later. So I thought this was really good direction for me when Pherix said, here's what you're achieving, but in that downtime where that's where the game really feels like you're a little lost, these are your options to start practicing, guys, depending on the situation. So once you get comfortable with this, you're really going to get into the flow of Arcane. So talking about a boot, I don't know if you guys know this, but I'm from Canada, up here in the Great White North, so I get harassed a lot about the word a boot. Talking a boot, Mage crowd control, guys. They have some of the strongest crowd control, if not maybe they probably do have the best crowd control in the game, and I'm going to walk you through the core pieces. We just talked about the burst rotation, the damage rotation. In your downtime, you're looking to play to live, and these abilities are going to help you live and then set up your next kill window. The first thing we have is Polymorph. It never has a cooldown, and you can cast them and put them into a poly for 7 seconds. You can recast it up to 3 times total before you'll see that my DR tracker, that's the second time. The third poly, you'll see my DR tracker turns red, and now I can't cast it on them. But if there was another target, I could poly another target. So Polymorph is extremely strong. You can use this to get jukes with your precog, which we're going to talk about in a bit. Or just note that this is a castable CC that you guys should be finding the best applications for, whether it's on DPS to slow their damage or CCing a healer so you can set up a cross kill. The next ability is called Dragon's Breath. And a little dragon's going to come out front of my character, and it's going to disorient everything in front of me. So it can be multiple targets. And then you can cast your Ring of Frost, which will incap the target in the ring for 7 seconds. So these are your 3 crowd control abilities. You also have an ability called Blast Wave, which was going to be a knockback for you guys. And then you have 3 different snares. So I have your CC, your knockback, and now your snares. Ice Nova is a snare from far away that roots the target. Frost Nova, when they're up close, will root the target around you. And then Cone of Cold is going to put a slow on them when they're up close, okay? The next 2 abilities are Slow, which is a spammable slow that's going to go on the target and make them walk extremely slow. And then we talked about it already. Arcane Barrage, when you Arcane Barrage at any stack, is going to apply the Chrono Shift to slow them down. So you have your CC, your knockback, your snares, and your slows. But what you can do, a good combination is Dragon's Breath into a Ring of Frost. But sometimes, while they're disoriented, they might not run into your in-cap ring. So let's walk that through. Let's pretend I Dragon's Breath him and put a ring down, but the ring missed him. You can add your Blast Wave to knock him into the ring, okay? So this is the strength and this is the toolkit of the mage. And again, the application here is you're using the CC on the healers to set up kills on the DPS, and you're using the CC on the DPS when you have no cooldowns to continue kiting them forever and be that annoying arcane mage that's dominating the bracket. Let's go through the defensives and the utility of mage, things you're going to be doing almost every single arena and every single rated battleground. If you're not doing these, it's because you one-shot them, and good for you, but otherwise you're going to be pressing these. Prismatic Barrier is the arcane's version of the shield that goes around you that's going to reduce the magic damage you take and also give you an absorb shield. So you're going to be pressing this off of cooldown. Mirror Images, not a lot of people know this off the top of their head, but gives you a 20% damage reduction. The mirror images themselves do next to no damage, so make sure you use this for the 20% wall when you're getting trained. Greater Invis, with the talent we've selected just above my webcam, Greater Invisibility, gives us a 60% damage reduction. So not just the Invis tech, but more so the 60% damage wall. That's what we're after here. And then, of course, Ice Block is going to make us immune to everything, and upon clicking it again, we can get out of the Ice Block. From there, you have Altar of Time, which is a very unique ability. You're going to place an image of yourself and however much health you had when you placed him. When you take damage, so I'm going to let Boulder Fist break my shield and hit me again. And then when I alter back by pressing it again, I go back to full health. So Altar of Time has a lot of uses, jumping off one of the arena maps, jumping down a floor, and then teleporting back up. Using it when your opponents have their big CDs up, so when you get chunked to half, you can go back to full health. You can use it to kite, and also when you Altar of Time and come back, you're going to get a blink charge, and I'm going to show you that. And I'm going to get Altar Time back even faster because Shifting Power is going to reset our CDs by a couple of seconds, and you can see Altar of Time came up. So with Shifting Power, what you're looking to do is press this after you've kited them to get your DPS and your utility, your defensives, and your CC reductions back up as soon as possible. But look here. When I use my blink at the bottom of my screen, it goes on cooldown for 13 seconds. When I alter, and then I alter back, my blink resets, okay? So these are just the brief defensives and the utility of Arcane Mage. Okay, guys, so we do like to give you some choices, and the choices for this guide for Arcane are going to be between Shimmer and Ice Floes. So right now I have Ice Floes selected, and it's important to note that Shimmer replaces your blink and it interacts differently. So let's talk about Ice Floes first. When you select Ice Floes in the talent tree, you're going to get Ice Floes, which when you press it, it allows you to cast while moving, so you can get a polymorph off while you're moving. The second thing that going the Ice Floes route does is it allows you to blink stun. So I'm going to ask Killerette to stun me, and then you're going to notice that with this one, I'm able to press blink and blink out of the stun. Now, I need to just give this a second to get off CD, but what I'm going to do is swap over to Shimmer, now that you've seen Icy Floes paired with the blink stun. And I'm going to show you guys Shimmer. So I'm going to change my talent points here. And then with Shimmer, what you're able to do is it replaces your blink. So it looks differently, but you get 2 charges. And you can cast while shimmering. So what I'm going to do is cast a polymorph here and show you how you can shimmer while casting and leap 2 times forwards and still get your DPS buff or your polymorph. Now, Pherix is a very experienced player, and he min-maxes, and he prefers Shimmer. However, into certain comps and what you're struggling with, you might prefer Ice Floes to get those 3 different times to cast, mixed in with the ability to blink a stun. So these are both situational, and we're explaining these so you guys can try both and see which one's for you. Both are really strong in different situations, so let me know what you prefer in the comments and give Shimmer and Ice Floes a shot, guys. That's the little bit of variant. The Arcane tree is not going to change and the Mage tree is not going to change, but those are two talents you can change to have a little bit of fun and to try them both out. We are going to talk about the PvP talent Mass Invisibility, guys. This spell is broken. It's extremely strong, and I'm going to tell you why. In short, it's like a shadow meld for yourself and for your entire team. But before we get into that, let me show you one of the uses. Right here, I'm going to press Mass Invisibility, and I'm going to put a Ring of Frost down. And the Ring of Frost, while casted in the Mass Invisibility, will be unseeable for the enemy. And I'll show you exactly what I mean. So I'm going to press Mass Invis, and then I'm going to put the ring down. I'm going to tell Killeret to run forward, and he can't see this ring, okay? So right there, he gets stuck in the ring, and he's fully CC'd. I could also look to blast wave him into it if he missed it because he can't see it. So let me show you from his angle what it looks like. Okay, so I just talked about Mass Invis and how when you press Mass Invis and put the ring down, the enemy can't see it. So I wanted you to see that firsthand. So I'm going to tell Dawes here to go ahead and Mass Invis and put a ring down, and then I'm going to walk into it as if I'm on the enemy team. So I've asked him to place a ring right here where mine is. And you can see that right now I can't see anything, but Dawes is there. Now watch as I walk forward and all of a sudden get hit by the Ring of Frost that was invisible. So that is the true strength of the Mass Invis Ring of Frost strat. Nobody knows where it is. And you could take it a step further and you could blast wave to knock the enemy into it. So if coincidentally they're just not going near it, they still don't know where it is, you could blink over and blast wave and knock them into it, and they'll never know what hit them. So you've seen the ring, but I want to take it a step further. Now, when you have the proper amount of haste, you're going to be able to Mass Invis, put a ring down, and get an Arcane Surge to start your burst from the get-go. So right here, I'm going to Mass Invis, and I'm going to cast a ring on a Killeret, and then I'm going to spam my Arcane Surge, and before I break out a stealth, I'll be able to get an Arcane Surge. Now, unfortunately, my guy doesn't have enough haste, so the example you saw isn't working, okay? My guy's in blues. Pherix has 32% haste. You're just going to have to trust me on this because I'm putting this in the video. When you Mass Invis and cast a ring and immediately cast an Arcane Surge, you will get the Arcane Surge off when you have over 30% of haste without coming out of stealth, and then can go into your rotation. So the downside of Arcane Surge is it's a cast, but you can do it with your Mass Invis on your opener without it being kicked. The other strength of Mass Invis and the other utilities, if we take these off, are different situations like this. When you Mass Invis, you drop combat. So if you play with a Rogue or a Feral Druid, you can line it up to Mass Invis and let them press their Prowl or Stealth to then take advantage of their talents that allow them, when they come out of Stealth, to do extra abilities. A step further would be your Mage is out of mana, but he can't get out of combat. You can Mass Invis and tell him to start drinking, and even with damage over times on him, he can start drinking, so it's a quick way to drop it. You can press this when your enemy healer is in a cheap shot and you know another cheap shot's coming. You can make him gap it by pressing Mass Invis. The strength of Mass Invis, it's a ceiling of its own because it's like Shadow Meld for your entire team, and you can use it for yourself, and you can set up some Mass Invises, and you could lead a polymorph from invisibility if you wanted. These are just a couple of the really strong ones you're going to see on Pherix's stream. You've got to put these into play. Mass Invis tech right now is so much fun. Okay, guys, so the three best races for Arcane Mage are double DPS Trinket Human, Shadow Meld Night Elf paired with all of the invisibility we've already talked about, or getting that toughness, that stun duration from Orc. But I like to say this in all my guides. Playing a character you like to look at and enjoy the lore of, or the gameplay of, or the transmog of, is typically better than chasing a racial. Now, if you're pushing top tier content, some of these racials truly do make a difference. If you're playing for fun or at a lower MMR, I think that it's more fun to play the race that you enjoy the most. But those are the top three to choose from. I had a lot of great feedback about the Notepad program that I've been using. This thing costs $500 yearly, but it's enough for you guys. It's what I needed to do. Otherwise, how would I be able to tell you about Pherix's top 3 arcane comps? Coming in at number 1, Arcane Assassination Rogue Disc Priest. Number 2, Arcane Demo Warlock. Let me type that in there. Druid. And number 3, Arcane Arms and Disc. These are the comps that Pherix believes to be the strongest and most enjoyable to play to climb the ladder and absolutely dominate anybody in your path. Okay, guys, the first weak aura we're going to talk about is our Precog weak aura paired with our PvP talent. So you're always looking to juke the enemy's kick, because when the enemy has no kicks, you can cast for free. But they've taken it a step forward, and Blizzard's given us an amazing PvP talent that when we juke a kick, now we're going to be immune to all kicks for 5 seconds and gain 15% haste and put out max dam. So that's a super important to track. That 5 seconds goes by fast, and you're going to see the weak aura that tracks it. So I'm going to Arcane Missiles here and stop casting to juke Dawes, and he's going to kick after I'm done my juke. So I'm going to Missiles and then move. He's going to kick me, and you can see the weak aura at the top shows me how long I have Precog for. The second weak aura is to track how much HP you were at when you altered. So I'm going to ask Dawes to do a little damage to me so it doesn't just show you the 100. So let's say you're getting hit by a little bit, right? When I press Alter of Time here, at the top, it's going to show me, Torpid, you altered at 81%. That's what you're going back to. So when I repress Alter, I go back to 81%. Now that's really valuable because you'll know when you alter back if you're in trouble, if you need help from your team further, or if you're going to be okay. And then the third weak aura is a little bit more complex, so let's get into that in a separate segment here. Okay, guys, this weak aura looks a little bit overwhelming, but it owns. It's from Hansel, another mage, a friend of Pherix's, Hansel.tv, guys. Check him out. He came up with this weak aura, and what it does is it tracks all the buffs. So, for instance, when you press Presence of Mind, you get 2 stacks of 2 free cast Arcane Blast, instant cast. You're also going to be getting Arcane Harmony. All your missiles and barrages are going to give you 10 stacks of this, and it's going to consume, okay? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to press all my buttons at once, and you're going to see how it tracks it on the left, and I have to stay in combat so it stays up. So regardless of the order I'm pressing buttons, just follow along here. I'm going to go ahead and press a lot of my big buttons, and you're going to see on the left there, what's happening is it's tracking the clear casting. It tracked my Presence of Mind. It's tracking my next 2 Arcane Blast that do 20% more damage. It's tracking 10 stacks here, so when I Arcane Barrage, it's going to consume the 10 stacks. It tracks my haste buff, the clear casting, and the slows. So I know that was a little overwhelming, but this weak aura is going to track your buffs. As you play, you're going to familiarize yourself with those buffs, or if you're already an Arcane Mage player, these are going to help you with your rotation and keeping your eyes on the proper part of the screen, okay? At the beginning of Guide in the Burst rotation, I showed you about my macro that stops casting the Arcane Missiles so you don't get locked out on Arcane. I really quickly wanted to go over that. If you type /macros and you just put /stop casting and drag that ability out to your bar, every time you Arcane Missiles and press this read away, it instantly cancels it. So it's much faster than casting Arcane Missiles and moving. You'll still get kicked a lot. Top tier gameplay is stop casting macro with the missiles to make sure you don't get kicked, to get your damage rotation out cleanly. Okay, guys, so I just want to remind you that Arcane is more than just the damage. It's what you bring to your team with the utility, with the CC, with the defensives that help you go on the offensive. Arcane is really what you're bringing to the team, not just another DPS class. Here's a screenshot of Pherix's stream. He's on his Gladiator mount. This is what his stream setup looks like. So I wanted you guys to see when he's in the arena. I'm there on my Sinful Drake beside him. This is what his screen looks like. So make sure you stop by his stream at twitch.tv/Pherix1 and check him out live if you have any questions about anything at all to do with Mage. Thank you guys for watching the video. Thank you for supporting the YouTube fam, the Never Torpid fam. We're going to have a lot of guides coming and a lot of World of Warcraft PvP related content for you guys. If you want to see anything, please let me know. As always, if you want to keep it Never Torpid in the game and out of the game, you got to want it for yourself, and then you got to take care of others. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you in the next one.